Okay. 10 people. Okay. Okay.
Now you gotta be on camera.
I am still on camera. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Nelson Mandela said it best. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Oh, let me look. I forgot. We should all care about education because our children are our future. Hi, my name is Genova McDonald and I am an Intro to Communication student at UALR. Today I will tell you about my service learning. First I'm going to tell you about what I did at my service learning. Then I'm going to tell you about a principle and a concept connected to my service learning. And finally I'm going to tell you how I can improve my own communications. Let's talk a little bit about where I completed my service learning and what I did. I completed my service learning at Cato Elementary. Cato Elementary is important because it's a school that someone important to you, I hope, attends. That means that I hope Callie is important to you. The mission of Cato Elementary, according to http://cato.pcssd.org/about-us, emphasizes a few key ideas. I only listed 3. There was like 8. I only put the 3 that I felt were important to the service learning I did. The first one is learning is a lifelong journey. Ensuring that the learning environment is physically and emotionally safe is essential. And 3, recognizing and valuing students' uniqueness motivates their needs to learn. At my service learning, the first day I did at the Fall Festival was pin a heart on the skeleton booth, and I literally just blindfolded kids and then walked them up to the thing and let them pin the heart on the skeleton. The second day I volunteered. I worked with the librarian at the media center, and we unboxed a whole bunch of books and thought what books would kids like to buy, what ones would they not, and then put them out on the tables for the kids to buy. And then the last day that I worked, I volunteered at the Thanksgiving luncheon making mashed potatoes. By helping set up the book fair, I helped encourage kids to learn. We picked out books that we knew kids would enjoy reading, which helped build their vocabulary. And then there were a lot of books that children could interact with, like crafty books, which builds their creativity. By helping at the book fair, this supported Cato's learning is a lifelong journey for all students portion of the school's mission. When I volunteered at the Fall Festival, I helped ensure that the learning environment was physically and emotionally safe for the students. Next, let's talk about communication principles and how they connected to my service learning. Communication is essential to our way of life. It should be important to you because it's how you build relationships. The relevant communication principle that I'm using is communication is inevitable. According to the UALR Survival Guide 2018, it defines this as, this is the you cannot not communicate idea. All behavior has symbolic potential and can be interpreted by others, whether we want them to interpret our communication or not. An example from my service that illustrates this is at the Fall Festival. I couldn't just stand there and stare at kids because they probably would think I was creepy and they wouldn't want to come to the booth at all. I couldn't act like I was mad or fold my arms or stand there like I didn't really want to be there, because then the kids, would think that I was off-putting and probably would just skip the booth. I had to make sure that I smiled and that I was open and I invited them to come in. Even if I wasn't talking, just smiling at them or waving at them would let them know that I was friendly and that they could come and be at the booth without, somebody harming them or anything. My example illustrates this principle because the students did not know me. I was a stranger, and their first impression was very essential to how they would experience the booth where I was at. If I would have behaved in a negative way, the children would have probably just avoided the booth altogether. The first communication concept is affect displays. The definition, according to Adler, Rodman, and Dupree 2016, is facial expressions, body movements, and vocal traits that reveal emotional states. An example from my service that illustrates this concept is while I was volunteering, I made sure I smiled. I wanted the kids to feel safe. I stood with my arms at my side instead of crossed around my chest. I also made sure I spoke with a friendly tone when talking to the kids. If for some reason a kid accidentally put it, in like a random spot, not where the heart goes, I laughed and made jokes with them. My example illustrates the definitions because you use facial expressions, body movements, and vocal traits constantly when communicating with people. When you use them positively, you create rewarding relationships. The second communication concept is confirming messages. The definition, according to the textbook, is actions and words that express respect and show that we value the other person. An example from my service that illustrates this concept is whenever I worked in the cafeteria at the luncheon, I had to make sure that I communicated with people so that they knew what I was needing, or that I communicated so that I knew what they needed me to do. And then also, like if for some reason, for example, that one of the lunch ladies didn't know where something should go, so she asked for an idea, and I said, well, why don't we put it there? And she said, do you think that's a good idea? And I said, I think that's a good idea. Some other people asked, does this look good? And I said, yes. So that confirmed to them that they were making a good decision, and that somebody valued their opinion. My example illustrates the definition because I didn't ignore anyone when they asked for my opinion or feedback. When someone suggested something that I thought was good, I made sure I told them it was a good idea. Moving on, based on my service experience, I can use communication concepts and ethical implications to improve my communication and help improve my community. We should all care about improving our communication because in improving our communication, we can improve our relationship with others. One communication concept I could use to improve my communication would be remembering. All of y'all know I could use a little bit more remembering. The definition, according to the textbook, is the act of recalling previously introduced information. I chose this concept based on my service experience because I met a lot of different people in passing, but I didn't remember any of the details that they told me. I can use this concept to improve my communication by remembering what is important to people. I think it would impress people, for example, if they told me they didn't like chocolate candy, they like Starburst, and I remember next time. An ethical implication I could use to improve my community would be responsibility. According to the UALR Survival Guide 2018, responsibility defines us as holding ourselves accountable for our choices, actions, and communication with others. I chose this implication based on my service experience because it is our responsibility to give our children positive experiences. I can use this implication to improve my community by taking responsibility for my own child's education, being active in their education, and making sure that they're provided every possible opportunity to grow and learn. In conclusion, today I told you about my service learning experience. We talked about what I did at my service learning, then I told you about a principle and concept connected to my service learning, and finally I told you how I can improve my own communication. Nelson Mandela was very wise. Our children's education will be their most important weapon when they change the world. Thank you.